Good evening. Welcome to the August 10th meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Kalasapati?
Here.
Councilmember Frenzel?
Here.
Councilmember Westfall? Councilmember Lum?
Here.
Councilmember Grand?
Here.
Councilmember Ackerman? Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Councilmember Eaton?
Here.
Councilmember Crapel?
Here.
Councilmember Warpowski? Councilmember Smith?
Present.
We have a quorum.
I'll note that Councilmember Westfall was engaged in conversation with IT staff and is present. May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Grand, seconded by Councilmember Lum. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The agenda is approved. Do we have communications today from our city administrator?
Yes, Mayor, we do. Just a couple of short items. I've attached to the agenda an update on the school safety improvements. It is the status through the end of July, and we will continue reporting on the status until we have finished everything we have to do. Also, there is a memorandum regarding a small fire we had at the materials recovery facility this week. That is an item of importance to our community. I wanted to provide the current status and certainly the reassurance that our recyclable materials are still being recycled. Nothing is ending up in the landfill. So public services staff, along with our fire department, did a great job of containing the fire and making sure service was not interrupted. I'd like to thank Officer Justin Camp for supporting us this evening. He's over in the corner. And finally, I'd like to give kudos and a shout out to the city clerk and her staff for the fact that the election was largely uneventful. And as she told us this morning, she received no complaints. So thanks to the clerk and her staff.
Thank you. We do have an introduction today. Would representatives from the MSTEM students of the University of Michigan come on and meet me at the front? Good to see you. We are, as I've said on numerous occasions, we're very fortunate here at the city to have a wonderful park staff, a wonderful staff in general, but with respect to this matter, a wonderful park staff. But parks staff cannot be everywhere at once, and so we rely upon the good graces and enthusiasm of many of our residents. And so we love to honor folks who have pitched in and done wonderful work here for us in service to our parks. And so today, in proclamation and appreciation of the Michigan Science, Technology, and Math Academy at the University of Michigan. Whereas the MSTEM students have dedicated themselves to volunteering at Huron River Day at Gallup Park in the assistance of the Ann Arbor Parks. And whereas the MSTEM summer program students and its coordinators have worked with the Give 365 volunteer program for the past 4 years, providing invaluable support, making Huron River Day a safe, smooth, and enjoyable event for thousands of people. And whereas their consistent participation with the Give 365 volunteer program has made a positive impact on the public spaces as well as the community in which they've interacted, and whereas the City of Ann Arbor appreciates the tireless work of volunteers in assistance of our parks. Now, therefore, I, Christopher Taylor, Mayor of Ann Arbor, Michigan, in recognition of these personal and volunteer endeavors conducted for the greater good of our community, do hereby proclaim a commemoration of the Michigan Science, Technology, and Math Academy at the University of Michigan volunteers on August 10, 2017, in the city of Ann Arbor. Congratulations. Tell us a little about yourself.
For sure. So first of all, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. This is a great honor. And just to give a little background of what the MSTEM Academy is the MSTEM Academy's goal is to diversify and unify the STEM field. And for those of you who don't know, that's the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. And the goal of this and how we do this is through building community. One of the goals of our program is honoring our community, honoring our history, and honoring our ancestry and our heritage at the University of Michigan. And we do this in many ways. And one of the ways that we want to build a community is building the community within the university and then engaging our students in building community around Ann Arbor and in the greater country. So we promote events such as this, community service, and giving back throughout the year. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Victoria, who's with me, and she's going to explain a little bit about what we do throughout the year in community service and a little more about the program.
So over the past few years, we've been expanding our engagement with the community through local events like the volunteering at the Ann Arbor Hands-On Museum, which we've been doing over the past 3 years. And we're looking to continue to expand that with Give 365, as well as other opportunities in Ann Arbor to make sure our students that range from freshmen to seniors at the University of Michigan are engaging and becoming competent and complete citizens of the university, and in taking that to wherever they may go beyond the university as well.
Thank you very much. Oh, all right. But wait, there's more.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a ton. Bye now. We now come to public comment reserve time. Public comment reserve time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment reserve time, one needs to have signed up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Speakers have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time clock. Speakers are not permitted to grant their reserve time to an alternate speaker. If you require assistance in speaking before council, we'd be delighted to provide it to you. And finally, as a matter of courtesy, we may have only one person speaking at a time. Our first speaker today is Jessica Prozadinsky.
Hello, everyone. So I am here tonight, along with many other people, to ask you to pass DC-3, which is the resolution opposing the deportation of Cameron Taymor and all Iraqi Christians arrested in recent ICE raids. We're in a fight for whether the Trump administration is going to get away with throwing immigrants' lives away for no reason other than to satisfy Trump's most racist supporters. Doing deportation defense campaigns like ours tonight for Cameron Taymor and all the Iraqi Christians arrested in recent ICE raids can absolutely work to change the outcome of what's going to happen. Victory is not guaranteed. We learned on Tuesday night that Jose Luis Sanchez Ronquillo had been deported to Mexico, and we only found out because he called us from Mexico, and it turned out that ICE had managed to walk him across the border before his lawyers could find out that the judge had ruled against us. We are not done fighting for him. I think we all know that we lost Lourdes. But we have had victories too. We got Jose Valle Rodriguez out of detention 2 Fridays ago, and he's now home with his family. We also have won for Yusuf Ajian and for Demba Bagayoko. So what we do in these deportation defense cases can absolutely mean the difference between winning and losing. Here are the specifics of Cam's case, the legal situation. We are waiting and have been waiting for many weeks for Judge Mark Jepson to rule on whether to reopen Cam's immigration case. His case was wrongly classified as an aggravated felony, even though it was actually a minor marijuana-related offense. If his case is reopened and the aggravated felony charge is dismissed, he will remain removable because of the drug convictions, but he will be eligible to apply for cancellation of removal and for asylum. If he receives cancellation of removal, he will keep his green card. If he receives asylum, he'll be back on the path to lawful permanent resident status. And either way, it will protect him against what could have been an imminent deportation to Iraq. There's going to be many family members speaking after me, so I'm going to leave it to them to talk about the specific of Cam's case. But what our tactics are in this case in particular is we are trying to communicate to the judge the massive community support that Cameron has, and that he is the opposite of a danger to society. We are also, as is in the resolution, asking Governor Snyder to issue pardons, because that is another way that we could get them off the deportation list. And then lastly, it is possible for Iraq to say that they won't accept the immigrants back, and we're also pursuing that tactic. Okay, my time is almost out, so I'll just say please support this resolution, and please do pass it tonight too, because time is of the essence. We don't know when the judge will rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Crystal Jabrio.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Jabiro. I'm an activist with Code Legal Aid, which serves as co-counsel with the ACLU on the Detroit deportation case. I would like to speak in support of Mr. Cam Taymor, whom I do not know personally, and his potential deportation. I'm a Chaldean American, and our family follows the news in Iraq very closely. My dad even served as a translator for the U.S. Department of Defense, and he just, during the recent war, and he just came home a few years ago. The Iraqi American community in Metro Detroit was horrified by the raids and scrambled to get help to bring their loved ones home. And because ICE would not release names, the community depended on each other and social media to collect information. Several lawyers stepped up to help, some even doing pro bono work, and many volunteers dedicated their time and money to the cause. The deportation punishment, a death sentence to a war-torn country that is actively practicing torture and genocide, does not fit the crime in which these people have already paid their debts to society. They were allowed to integrate back into the public. They are tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. Many are married with children. Some even have grandchildren. Cam Taymor had a marijuana conviction 7 years ago. He served probation and now owns a business in which he not only pays taxes, but also supports his family. This was a nonviolent, victimless crime that does not warrant death. That is what Mr. Taymor's deportation will be. As a Muslim who converted to Christianity, he will be seen as an apostate according to their laws and subsequently punished in the worst way. To send these people to a nation that is being torn apart by ISIS on a daily basis and inhumane, and it violates international laws and treaties. My students ask me, why do we have to learn history? I always give the same answer. We need to understand our past so that we could have a better future. I also say history repeats itself. And when ISIS was marking Christian homes with a noon, the Arabic letter, the letter N for Nasari means Christian, I immediately thought about our Jewish brothers and sisters who suffered the same agony when they were marked with the Stars of David 70 years ago. Iraq is not safe. And as a teacher, I know about the emotional effects this crisis has on children, and I've seen and heard it take its toll on the families who are affected. These potential deportations have already caused homelessness, poverty, and mental and physical health issues. These deportations may also cause a lack of education and crime, all because one parent has been removed from the home. Mostly dads, and kids need their parents. I implore you to consider the resolution and help put a stop to this, not just for Cam Taymor, but also for the scores of others who are detained or at risk, for their parents, and mostly for the children. By sending them back to Iraq, we are saying, let them die, and let their children die too. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lois Kamoy.
And Ceylon Taymor, who is supposed to be next, is not feeling well, so she will not be here.
Thank you.
Okay, first, I'd like to thank City Council for considering this resolution. This has been a very difficult time for my son-in-law, daughter, and grandchildren, and extended family, and signs of compassion are comforting. I have seen several comments online suggesting that Cam came here illegally, and I would like to emphasize that he came here legally. He left Iraq with his family when he was 12 and stayed in a UN refugee camp in Turkey for 3 years. He was about 16 when he arrived here. The family has always cherished their arrival on August 10th and celebrated it each year as a holiday. Both parents have died, but all his siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins are now citizens. Cam had a permanent residency visa, which was taken when he was convicted of the marijuana offense. He served the 6 months probation assigned to him by the court. He has been held by ICE in Youngstown, Ohio since June 11th. There are many reasons to expect that Cam will be killed if deported to Iraq. It is publicly known that 2 of his 8 sisters worked as translators for our American military at Kirkuk Air Base there. Many Iraqis see this as traitorous, and translator families have been targeted and killed. The sisters were promised that their families would be protected. This is a betrayal of their service. Cam converted to Christianity after he married my daughter. Chaldeans are born into the Catholic Church, and Islamic law says they are not to be punished for not knowing Islam. Cam was brought up Muslim, so is an apostate, and that is punishable by death. Iraq's new constitution says in Article 2 that no Iraqi law can be made which contradicts Islamic law, so the government would not have a legal basis to protect him from execution. Cam and the other detainees will be seen as Americans. Their accents, language weakness, clothing, and other attributes will mark them as foreign. This will target them for kidnapping, ransom demands, and death. They are likely to be followed as they leave the airport. He has no relatives in Iraq, no shelter, and no job. Cam is Kurdish, a persecuted minority there. Our own State Department has a travel warning against going to Iraq, and it is currently a war zone. Death is grossly disproportionate to his crime. Cam has been living in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti since a few months after their arrival. He owns a collision shop in Ypsilanti and lives in Ann Arbor. He has been a good husband and father to my daughter and their children. He helps me live independently next door to them because they help me with my mail and lawn and trash removal and check on me. He is an employer. He is the patriarch of a large extended family and takes responsibility seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that Zilan Taimur is not here today. Is that correct? Thank you. Our next speaker is Ray Gamel. Ray Gamo. Our next speaker today is Shano Taimur.
I'm going to bring this little guy up with me, and I'm sorry.
No worries.
All right. First and foremost, I would like to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to speak. I am Shano Taimur, the youngest. Again, I'm sorry, it's just very emotional for us right now. Cameron Taimur is nothing short of a dad to me. We lost our parents in 2010 and 2012, so Cam has always been there for me. We fled in Iraq in 1990 due to Saddam Hussein's intolerant and violent regime. Our dad was prisoner in 1982 and 1988, so he saw all the torture that they're doing to the minority there, to specifically Kurds. He was a vocal activist for Kurdish rights, and that got him in trouble twice. We came here in 1993, and today marks our 24th anniversary being here. Ann Arbor is our home. We haven't been anywhere else. We've been here for the majority of the time we have moved here. Well, Cam cannot be sent back because 2 of my sisters worked with the military. They were translators for over 3 years, and they were promised that they were going to protect all the family and everything. And in the eyes of Iraqis or anyone there, this is considered as a traitor, and they're going to be specifically targeted. And Cam also has converted to Christianity, which we're brought up as Muslim. Cam and the other detainees, they will be seen as American. As Judge Goldsmith said, anyone with an American ties are big targets there. The government has their name. They have what they look like. They have names of all the detainees. And there's also militias that work with the government, so that also gives them their name, their identity, where they come from, when they will be sent back. So this is a bigger target for them. And it is basically, they will be going through the same trial again. Whatever they were convicted of here, they will be convicted there again, and they will be imprisoned, and they will be tortured, and even to the point of dying. And Iraq has been known to be a war zone since 2003, and it got worse in 2007. And the government also has warned high risk for traveling to Iraq. So sending these people who have American ties to a place that they don't even know they've left since they were, young, this is targeting them. We have no one there to protect him. We have no one there to guide him. He's not going to be able to find a job because he has American ties. People don't want to work with whoever's from America because they're trying to save their own life. So this will greatly jeopardize his life, and I honestly believe the minute he steps off, someone will grab him and he's gone. We will never hear from him again. So thank you very much, and again, thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Glenn Heber.
Heber, sir? If I heard that right, I have a hearing problem.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Glenn Heber. Little background, I was the precinct delegate for the 6th ward of 6th precinct of the 1st ward from 2010 to 2012. I'm here to try to put a skids on the 1140 proposal, 1140 Broadway. I'm quite sure this did not meet the law, and I'm asking that the city not docket it until they hear from me. I'll try to do it by next hearing. I think I'm entitled to more to put these arguments together. We've only had counterfeit public hearings. We haven't had a chance to get this together, and that's because my objections were not taken serious by Brett Leinart, okay? I'd just like to give a quote, or start with a quote. This is by co-founder of and CEO of Brownfields Listing. They're listing brownfields that were up until this year, or at least recently, were protected environment. His quote is, "We've never seen a perfect storm set up for these brownfields before. The U.S. is returning to the industrial heyday. If you look at the long-term trends, our country offers the best opportunities for investment in infrastructure, especially in our urban cores, provided that we keep the lanes clear." I think we'll find with Brett, he's keeping the lanes clear. We're trying to protect our environment. We're trying to protect our neighborhood and community. I will be making an argument, I will be making an argument on the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, that the republic form of government is not being afforded to the states. I'm going to leave you with this quote. It's by Betsy DeVos. How it's relevant is that I'm under the impression that she was in charge of the Michigan Pension Fund, which awarded the 1140 to the developer. And her quote says, and this is in 1994, by the newspaper Roll Call, where she says, "My family is the largest single contributor of soft money to the National Republican Party. I have decided, however, to stop taking offense at the suggestion that we are buying influence. Now I simply concede the point. We expect
Thank
a
you.
return on our investment." This is what's producing
Thank you.
the proposal out of Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Godfrey.
Thank you very much. I'm John Godfrey. I live on Brockman Boulevard. Thank you for your courtesy. And I must say that it's very sobering to have had the occasion to follow some of the testimony that was brought before you by the speakers about the tragedy and the unjust actions that face citizens. And I'm grateful for this open space where the diversity of issues can be brought into the public. I think this is a very, very vital, not just simply a civic service, but the public voice is a very important, and this is a critical place in Ann Arbor, so thank you. I want to talk about an entirely different issue, and I beg your indulgence. On April 17th, the City Council placed a 180-day moratorium on ground-mounted solar collectors in front open space in residential districts. The purpose of the moratorium was to give the Planning Commission time to draft an ordinance for the appropriate location of solar arrays that would respect the character of the city's neighborhoods and streetscapes. The neighbors on Brockman were thankful for this decision and the apparent consensus that ground-mounted arrays do not belong in front yards. I would like to call the Council's attention to how consideration of this ordinance is taking place. Last month, with 5 days' notice, we were surprised to learn the Commission intended to act on a draft ordinance at its July 18th meeting. And we were greatly dismayed to learn that the proposed ordinance in its current form will allow front yard installations in residential neighborhoods. We had no notice of this action and are mystified by this complete change of direction. At the July meeting, we asked for a postponement until the public could be notified about the intended change, the zoning change, so it could have a broad and open discussion that it deserves. The Commission agreed to a delay of only 1 month, however, and will be taking the proposal up at its next meeting next week, August 15th. With Ann Arbor in full vacation mode, a month delay is insufficient. The need to embrace solar energy is self-evident, urgent, and not in question. Appropriate zoning to guide solar installations is long overdue. We are pleased to see increasing numbers of rooftop systems around the city, and we look forward to when the city can reach agreements to develop medium to large-scale solar farms, such as the one proposed for the municipal airport, that can achieve significant economies of scale and power-producing capacity to make a decisive difference in reaching our city's solar power goals. We are concerned that the ordinance moving forward would allow installations in locations that are wholly inappropriate for the character and quality of the city's neighborhoods. And we are concerned that, if passed, it will threaten the community consensus that is vital for developing an effective citywide energy plan. Large ground-mounted solar collectors simply do not belong in front yards, no more than they belong in parks or playgrounds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have communications from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Ray Gamble has arrived? Yes. Very good. Never worries. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.
Council, my name is Ray Gammo. My journey to America started as my family got here in between 1983 and 85. I'm going to close my eyes because I'm going to reflect this because I'm a product of that particular environment. Today, we have a very successful local business, 3 local businesses. We come from 9 brothers. The Gammo brothers have Saline Party Store, Village Party Store, Stony Creek, and Willis, and I particularly do Sprint Business and Radio Shack in the local area. Obviously, Radio Shack and its situation is pretty sad, but we'll help with corporate greed in a later day. Today, I'm going to tell you about my brothers. Ronnie and Andy Gammo have been working 20 hours a day, every day since we got to this country. At age 10, I had more paging customers than they had liquor store customers, and so it was a constant fight and a battle to see who could get more customers into the store to help the community to build that dynamic community and that dynamic relationship between the community and what you have. In every community, there's a market, and in your local community, there's a place called Stony Creek Market at Stony Creek and Willis. The most amazing guy exists there. In our current situation, I have a brother-in-law and a first cousin who are affected in this particular situation. There isn't any words that can particularly explain my grief or tell you what my community's situation is other than we are partners and friends and we are adversaries and advocates of our communities to grow stronger, to build between what we see as oppression within the tobacco industry, within the liquor industry, and I won't go into that. But I know these guys and this particular group of individuals fight every day for our communities, for local representation. They're the sponsorship. They're the go-to guys. Lincoln Consolidated Schools, Sean comes to our store for every possible food item that we could possibly donate. And that's what I know of every party store, every Chaldean American in this community, of every brother, cousin, first cousin, sister, aunt. It's a community that's like this. We've grown together, come together as a church, not as a cult, not as people trying to destroy this nation, but as a people trying to grow this nation. Together in every urban community. Today I've traveled from Flint to see the poverty. I've seen the stricken people that can't do anything in Detroit, right? I've seen every urban sprawl that you can possibly come from. I sell Sprint business into every possible sector. It's sad what our world has come to in our broken societies, that we take these people specifically who are what I call the anchors of our communities, the pillars of what we've grown into. All Catholics, most Catholics, I'm not sure of what others are, but I know specifically of what my family is and what they play in this particular role. I was personally married at St. Andrews in Saline. I have an amazing dynamic history at OLGC, and I look forward to growing our communities together, not apart, not through these. That's how we build boundaries, not break them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much for hearing me. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Council. I look forward to working with you.
Are there communications from council? Councilmember Crapel.
For the Ann Arbor District Library Summer Games players, the game code for tonight's meeting is government at work. That's all caps and no spaces between the three words, government at work. Code is government at work. For those tweeting on Twitter, please resist tweeting the code out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there further communications from council? Councilmember Ackerman.
Just a quick note on the public process that brought us to where we are on 1140 Broadway. I want to be very clear about what a public hearing is, and it's an opportunity for the public to speak to bodies of citizen volunteers in the case of the Planning Commission, or public bodies elected by the people in the case of City Council. The role of staff is very different. The role of staff is to do a technical review of a site plan and assess its appropriateness in terms of zoning and in terms of building code. I have complete confidence that Mr. Leonard, who was mentioned by name, has done all of those things. In an 8-month back and forth with the petitioner and staff, there have been numerous reviews and changes to site plans to bring it into accordance. I would hate that staff be put in a position that their work was not thorough or appropriate when a public body moves a petition forward.
Further communication from council? Councilmember Grand.
Thank you. I'd just like to bring everyone's attention to CC1, which is a resolution to appoint Stephanie Buttrey to the Greenbelt Advisory Commission. This is actually a reappointment. Ms. Buttrey, who is also a resident of Ward 3, has served admirably on the Greenbelt Commission, so I hope that you will support her reappointment. She's done a tremendous job, and I'm happy that.
Is that coming before us today or next week, next time? Next
I
time.
think it's coming next
I
time,
gather
but I
next
just
time.
want to bring it to your attention.
Very good.
Also, just while I'm here, I want to thank our speakers this evening. Our ability to take action is limited, I appreciate your coming out, and we will certainly continue to do everything we can to support families in this community. And I'll leave it at that for now. I also just, while I'm speaking, want to just show my appreciation, because I certainly wouldn't want to pull it, but for all of the RFBs that I assume that we'll be passing this evening, I received a message from a resident today saying, can we please get one of those blinking lights at Packard near where kids cross to Allen School? And I said, yeah, it was my first priority, and guess what? Great news. So I'm so pleased to see the RFBs coming not only in our ward, but throughout the city in priority locations that will keep our kids safer walking to school next year.
Further communication from council? Further communication? I have no communications today. We now have before us the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Eaton. Discussion of the consent agenda. Councilmember Ackerman.
Very quickly on the community events grants, I just want to thank Councilmember Grand. I was happy to see the Cobblestone Farmers Market receiving a $1,000 grant. While this is smaller in comparison to the rest of them, the Cobblestone Farmers Market is a collection of neighbors around Burr Park who have worked for years to assemble a weekly event on Tuesdays that mirrors our downtown farmers market. And while staff has been generous in trying to figure out ways to mitigate cost for them, trying to bootstrap any new farmers market is incredibly difficult, and this community grant is terrific in building that community, as well as making sure we have access to local foods.
Councilmember Lum.
Yes, to CA 7, again, it's the recommendation to approve the contract for the installation of 8 RRFBs. And there are 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacon-related items on the consent agenda tonight, and I'd like to thank staff for advancing them. Assuming we approve them, the city will be adding 10 more RRFBs at existing crosswalks, 8 of which are funded by the city and 2 on Fuller near Veterans Hospital that are funded by a federal grant that the city had applied for and received. And I would just like to add that it is great to see the continuing progress in terms of improving pedestrian safety at key crosswalks citywide and at our schools. And it's also worth repeating what was noted in the cover memo, that with these installations, the city will have installed RRFBs at 18 of the 20 key locations identified in the 2013 non-motorized plan, and that the other 2 are in process. So it's very nice to see the progress, and we all appreciate staff's efforts on this, so thank you.
Further discussion of the consent agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We now come to a public hearing. Public hearings are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about a specific matter on the agenda. To speak at our public hearing, one need not have signed up in advance, but your speech must relate to the specific subject matter of the public hearing. Speakers will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time clock. As a matter of courtesy, we may have only one person speaking at a time. And finally, if you require assistance in speaking before council, we would be delighted to provide it to you. Public hearing number 1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55, zoning, rezoning 20 city-initiated annexed properties from TWP Township District to R1C, R1D, Single-Family Dwelling District, and M1, Limited Industrial District. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. We have before us the regular session meeting minutes of July 17, 2017. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes? Moved by Councilmember Crapel, seconded by Councilmember Lum. Discussion of the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. B1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55, zoning, rezoning of 20 city-initiated annexed properties from TWP Township District to R1C, R1D, Single Family Dwelling District, and M1, Limited Industrial District. Moved by Councilmember Ackerman, seconded by Councilmember Westfall. Discussion, please, of B1. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved. DC1, Resolution for Community Events Fund Disbursements from the fiscal year 2018 budget. Moved by Councilmember Grand, seconded by Councilmember Frenzel. Discussion, please, of DC1.
This is my,
Councilmember Frenzel.
yes, thank you. This is my first time on the Community Events Fund. Had a delightful support from staff and issued in from Ms. Grand. I take pride that our community has such amazing events in our downtown and our neighborhoods. We are simply supporting here nonprofits that are doing amazing work in our community, parades, running races that support other initiatives. And my favorite is, of course, Festival and Full Moon. So I'm fully behind this one.
Further discussion, Councilmember Graham.
I'd like to just add a specific thank you to Sarah Higgins, who makes us look good by doing this. So thank you to Ms. Higgins. She does make everyone look good. But in this specific case, she really does take the reins of this activity, and we are lucky to just come in and support the excellent work that she brings to us.
Councilmember Ackerman.
Yeah, I apologize for misreading the agenda on Tuesday. I was a bit distracted. It was not on the consent agenda, but I'll take the opportunity once again to thank Councilmember Frenzel and Councilmember Grand for the Cobblestone Farmers Market grant.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved. DC2, resolution to recommend approval of issuance of a downtown development district liquor license to the Michigan Theater Foundation, Inc., moved by Councilmember Lum, seconded by Councilmember Kalasapathy. Discussion, please, of DC2. Councilmember Lum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's one liquor license-related item tonight coming from the Council Liquor License Review Committee. It's recommended to the MLCC approval of a downtown development district license for the Michigan Theater Foundation at the State Theater on South State Street. You'll recall the state created these special development district licenses about 10 years ago to spur economic development when certain criteria were met, including investing at least $75,000 in the premises. The Michigan Theater Foundation has met all of the criteria for the license. City staff have inspected the space and there are no issues. Staff and the committee request your approval tonight to recommend the MLCC approve this license at 223 South State. Thanks.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved. DC3, resolution opposed the deportation of Cameron Tamer and all Iraqi Christians arrested in recent ICE raids, moved by Councilmember Eden, second by Councilmember Kalasapathy. Discussion, please, of DC3. Councilmember Eden.
Thank you. I'd like to first start by thanking members of the community who assisted me in drafting this. I was a little distracted by electoral politics, and I received considerable support and assistance. We find ourselves at a point in history where our federal government has engaged in simplistic anti-immigration rhetoric to accomplish goals unrelated to the immigrants themselves. And it's really important for just good and decent people to speak up when we see just simplistic hate. And I believe that this council has done that on a number of occasions. And this particular resolution is in furtherance of that same basic goodness of our community. Cam came to this country legally. He's lived in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti for quite a number of years. He's been a productive citizen. He did have a minor marijuana offense that's been mischaracterized as an aggravated offense. And that, especially to Ann Arborites, shouldn't be cause to send him back to Iraq or to deport him to anywhere. We are rather tolerant of marijuana offenses anyways. But it's so imperative that we speak up because we've seen that the federal courts actually do pay attention when the community stands strong with somebody who's being victimized in this fashion. We can be pretty sure of the fate of a Muslim who's converted to Christianity upon being deported to Iraq. It's pretty much a death sentence. And that alone should cause us grave concern. But because his family members have also cooperated with the U.S. military in Iraq, it compounds the likelihood that he will, suffer dire consequences should he end up back in Iraq. So I was really pleased that Ms. Prozinski approached me and asked me to sponsor this. I think the time is of the essence here. We don't know when they will act on the deportation effort. And so I ask for your support. I think that it's consistent with our previous actions, and I think it's consistent with the community values that we hold.
Councilmember Kalasapathy.
I'm not going to go into the details of the case, but what I would like to lay out here is we have less control over the federal government and ICE, but I think what we need to appeal right now is to the Governor Snyder. He lives in Ann Arbor, he's our governor, and he should pardon the gentleman. I don't want to be a broken record, but all of you know I come from Sri Lanka. Tamils were a linguistic and religious minority. Majority of them were Hindus, and they were persecuted minority, and I came here as a refugee, and I just always say, I mean, this country gave me an opportunity, and that's part of the reason I get involved in politics and do all this, because I feel I need to give back to this community that hosted me and gave me a second chance at life. When I was in my 20s, early 20s, many of my friends were killed in Sri Lanka, and I was one of those very lucky ones who did escape. So I know what it means to be a prosecuted minority in a country, and death is a lot of times the ultimate, and especially if you're branded traitor. I mean, I know what happens. That's the end of you. There's no rule of law. There's no courts. It's summary judgment. So I make this plea to our governor, Mr. Rick Snyder, please. And look at us. We are minorities, and we try to be as productive and be proud citizens of this country. So I hope you will pardon all the Christians who will be killed if they are sent back. So, thank you.
Councilmember Ackerman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to my council colleagues for bringing this forward. Councilmember Eaton, I've been going through the same electoral process you were, and I appreciate the work that you and Councilmember Kalasapathy did during this time. It's a heavy lift, and I appreciate your attention. I'm getting pretty tired of having to talk about how our community members are being deported from this country. I'm getting pretty tired of listing the qualities of these individuals who do nothing but pay their taxes, be contributing members of a neighborhood, being quality members of a congregation, of a church. This is disgusting and exhausting. In this particular case, it's incredibly dangerous. While we have economic refugees coming out of Mexico, we have political and war-torn refugees coming out of the Middle East. And sending a Christian back to Iraq at this time is not too dissimilar to sending a Jew back to Germany in 1935. My family is Jewish, and the asylum that my family was given earlier than the Holocaust is something that I'm incredibly grateful for. It's not different than sending an Armenian back to Turkey in 1914. It's not different than sending a Tutsi back to Rwanda in 93. Death for these people is very real, and it's very imminent. And we're contributing to that out of our laziness for not reforming an immigration system that this body has no control of, but we're voting members of a society that allows it, and I'm getting tired of it. I want to quickly speak in terms that maybe speak to people who support these immigration policies, to the administration that inspired them. When you risk the lives of the family members and the individuals who volunteered to go side by side with the men and women of the U.S. Armed Services in the Middle East, you're undermining peace in the Middle East, you're undermining the safety of every soldier, sailor, Marine. Because if we don't have the ability to speak Arabic in Iraq, the world is left to be torn apart. But more than that, if we want to drain the swamp, let's start with the bureaucrats in the ICE field office in Detroit who would rather be lazy and detain law-abiding citizens than actually go after gang members. Because these people are easy to catch. It's easy to go into a restaurant in Ann Arbor without a warrant and detain people in the kitchen, but it's actually really hard to catch violent criminals. And if we want to drain the swamp, let's start with the bureaucrats who would rather go after mothers and fathers and church members than gang members. So I'm getting tired of this. Again, I appreciate my colleagues for bringing this forward. It's timely and necessary, and I can't do anything more but to support this.
Councilmember Smith.
I'd like to thank the community for bringing this forward and the sponsors for getting this onto the agenda over the weekend, a very busy weekend. We listen to these stories, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. I just can't imagine the pain that not only the Tamors, but everybody that's come before us with a similar story is going through. And I can't say it any more forcefully than Councilmember Ackerman did, but this is a disgusting breach of contractual arrangement we had with individuals that helped us during the Iraqi War. And I find it unconscionable that our government, and particularly the Detroit ICE field office, would persecute these people and sentence them to death. I don't understand the authority that they're given to do so. I don't believe that it's moral. I don't believe that it's just. And I believe that though we have no authority over these folks, we will continue to stand up for the rights of these people. We will continue to be loud, and we will continue to push on for justice and fair treatment for all of our citizens here.
Councilmember Crapel.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the comment of my fellow council members and thank Councilmember Eaton Calipart for bringing this forward. You know, again, I'm distressed that once again we're having to have a resolution such as this. I think the biggest, and that we as a local community have to vote on this, but I think the current environment, that's what needs to be done. Local communities need to say we have enough. I think even more important is as we're looking at an election next year, people need to get out. They need to get out and vote. The policies that support this are done by the elected officials in office currently in Washington, D.C. And that power to be able to adjust and change those policies, the laws that are guiding this are held there. And it's very important, again, for people to become active, to be civically minded, and to get out and vote, and to participate in the electoral process to try and change. Because unfortunately, despite the actions that we take in other communities, I don't see this changing anytime soon until there's real changes made in the attitude and the leadership that's in Washington, D.C. right now. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think there's a whole lot more I can add. I want to reiterate my thanks to the family for coming here and being vulnerable and opening themselves up and letting us know firsthand what this process is like. I think it's clear that these ICE actions, this one and the ones previously, do not make us a safer community. Our neighbor, Mr. Tamor, is not a threat to the community. Pursuing deportation traumatizes the family and the extended community that they're a part of. And at worst, as has been mentioned, it could cost him his life. And I think this shows a severe disrespect for the taxpayers who expect government to make us safe. This is the wrong priority, and I hope we can get to the bottom of this. In the meantime, I hope those in authority who can act on his behalf will do so. Thanks.
Councilmember Frenzel.
Echo all of my council colleagues' comments. Thank you all. And again, to the family and the speakers who came today, it is not lost on us that putting yourself out there is bold action. And so I thank all of our community members who will do that for our community. Thank you. And those who are helping coordinate from that side, for example, Ms. Prochowski, continuing to push us and push our community and helping coordinate our community is critical at this time. We have seen the bubbling up in many, many occasions of all sorts of scenarios where progressive leading communities change the national rhetoric. It takes time and it takes a lot of effort, but it works, and we need to continue. Thank you.
Councilmember Lum.
I'll just share a personal story. I have a nephew who has served a couple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he had translators while he was in the Middle East. I actually got to meet his translator at a family get-together, and my brother's family, my nephew's dad, has included him in family get-togethers at the holidays, and I do know that I believe his identity was changed to protect him for safety reasons. So I will just share that story.
Further discussion? Well, for my part, I'd just like to echo, of course, what has been said to date. First, and thank to the community for raising this question. Thank you to the sponsors for bringing it forward. I note this resolution is different than some of the others that we've had before us, some of the issues that we've had before us. It does speak to Governor Snyder with respect to the ability to pardon as perhaps removing a contingent precedent for the proposed deportation. And that's an interesting approach and one which I had not previously considered. And so I'm very glad that that additional avenue is part of this conversation. I think that it's as plain as it has been made plain by the voices here at the table and the voices in the streets of Ann Arbor, that the tearing apart of families as a result of unjust deportation is contrary to the values of our community. This is an action which will not make America safe. It will not protect American jobs. It will have the sole effect of devastating a family and a community and endangering the life of a man who is valued here and has done nothing to warrant that risk. Has done nothing to warrant that result. It is, I believe, a time in our national history that we will, I hope soon, reflect upon as a moment, as a disgrace, and a time for which we as a nation ought to feel shame. And it's my hope that that time will come sooner or later. Sooner than later. There are moments in our history where we do properly feel tremendous pride. There are moments in our history where we must feel shame and regret, and I think that we're living in one. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The resolution is approved. I will note that it is unanimous with all 10 with 10 of our council members present. Do we have communications today from the city attorney?
No, Mayor.
My apologies. I skipped DC4. Thank you. Thank you. Resolution DC4, resolution to waive the right of first refusal for Unit 1 of the Ann Arbor Tally Hall condominium, moved by Councilor Ackerman, seconded by Councilor Lum. Discussion of DC4. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved. Do we have communications today from our city attorney?
Still not.
We have before us the clerk's report of communications, petitions, and referrals. May I have a motion, please, to approve the clerk's report, moved by Councilmember Ackerman, seconded by Councilmember Frenzel. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The clerk's report is approved. We now come to public comment general time. Public comment general time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment general time, one need not have signed up in advance. Speakers have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time clock. As a matter of courtesy, we may have only one person speaking at a time. And finally, if you require assistance in speaking before council, we'd be delighted to provide it to you. Is there anyone who would like to speak at public comment?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Griswold. This has been a very contentious election cycle, but while this was happening, staff were busy working and made significant improvements in the items identified for transportation safety in our school walk zones. So I'd like to publicly acknowledge the work that staff has done, from Sarah Higgins to the police department, the engineering department, the people that make the new signs. It's really been a good process. And not only that, we had a very productive meeting with engineering, going through all the progress that had been made in identifying what still needs to be made. I would implore council, we need the funding to allow staff to make all the improvements that are needed. In addition, I want to acknowledge that I think there is actually a culture change within city staff. It's more of a can-do attitude. I've worked with city staff for over 20 years, and it is a pleasant change. The only area that I would like to see further improvement is community engagement regarding the Huron High School crosswalk on Fuller. There are very strong opinions about that. That's where a death of a student occurred less than a year ago, and I think that we need to engage the public in that process before we move further. I'd also like to acknowledge this new brochure for the Be Safe program. I hope that the Ann Arbor Public Schools will have posters and brochures available for their students when school starts in September. And the last thing is that I was asked to identify the areas with overgrown vegetation that were identified in the A2 Safe Transport report and put those problems into the A2 Fix-It system. What I would like to do is work directly with staff to identify those areas because it's going to be very time-consuming for me to put them into A2 Fix-It and for staff to respond. A lot of those are known, so if there's a way that we can jumpstart that process, and also, I've talked about this before, this is a major safety issue. There's a new ticket in today where vegetation is completely covering a stop sign. This is something that the city should work proactively to make sure doesn't happen and not wait for a complaint. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at public comment?
Thanks for doing the e-comment stuff. It's pretty cool. I e-commented today, so I have no reason to tell you more about that because you can read it. I saw it in the agenda too, so that was neat. I'm very thankful because in this upcoming week, my green card is my 20th anniversary in the United States. And I love this city, I love where I live, and I don't take it for granted. And I listen to the stories of people who've come here and what's happening to them, and it's not right. And I sometimes maybe have an irrational fear, but I realize that because of the current political climate and all that stuff, that you fear about legal immigrants and what's even, happening to them, and it scares people like me. I don't know. I just wanted to thank you guys for the work you've done on this stuff, and it means to me something personally, quite a lot. Otherwise, have a good night.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Edward Vilmetti. I'd like to comment on the liquor license that was approved for the State Theater. I think it's a great addition to that space, and I think that's going to be a terrific venue once it's back up online. They've spent a lot of time planning this and raising money for it and renovating it. It's going to be beautiful. I found I am probably one of few people who actually follow the liquor license committee that the city council has, and do my part to try to figure out what's going to be on the agenda before it actually gets to city council. This is important in part because not all proposals from all people should be necessarily approved with such glee that the State Theater one went through. In particular, the liquor licenses is at the very edge of districts, sometimes abut up against residential uses, and the residents there should at least have their say as to what's going on and have some notice that someone has plans for the building across the street from them. And so I've tried as hard as I can to figure out what's going to be on the liquor license agenda in advance enough so that I can let people know if it's not my neighborhood that they should go on. And was happy that I was able to notice that there was going to be no controversy this time, but I only got that notice 18 hours before the agenda came in front of the board. And 18 hours is not really long enough to notify a community. I don't think even if you spent a lot of money, you could get notice out in 18 hours to folks. So, not being content to complain about things, I took some action. I asked the clerk through the FOIA process to give me a list of all of the liquor licenses that have been applied for, but not yet come before the commission, the committee, and in the hopes that this backlog, and it might be a 6-month backlog based on the previous account of how long the State Theater took to get in front of this group. Just to take a look at that backlog once and see if there's anything that might possibly be controversial. And if there is, then in due course, with leisure, let people know about it. I'm all in favor of a good honky-tonk here and there, but not everyone is, and I think neighbors need to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at public comment?
Hi, my name is Jim McIntosh, and I live out in the 2nd Ward. And we talk a lot about safety. And I don't come downtown during rush hour very often, but I was coming down Liberty, and I turned onto Ashley. This is at 6 o'clock. I get to Huron, the light turns yellow, and I stop. And the SUV behind me cut out into the oncoming lane and went through the intersection on a red light. And we talk a lot about, let's put this here or that there so that we have all these flashers all over the city, which help. But one of the things we've got to figure out how to do is we got to slow people down. And it's getting, the number of times, this isn't the first time I got passed for somebody to run through a red light from behind me in Ann Arbor. So just a thought.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at public comment? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. Do we have a closed session this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a closed session under the Open Meetings Act. It's for written attorney-client privileged communication.
May I have a motion, please, to go into closed session? Moved by Councilmember Crapel, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Discussion? Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Smith.
Nice to be on point.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Kawasapati? Yes. Councilmember Frenzel?
Yes.
Councilmember Westfall?
Yes.
Councilmember Lum?
Yes.
Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
Councilmember Ackerman?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Eaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Crapel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are in closed session. We're back in open session.
What kind of sound do you want?
Actually, I think, do I need a motion to get back in open session? May I have a motion, please, to move back in open session? Moved by Councilmember Grant, second by Councilmember Lum. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're back in open session. May I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Westfall, second by Councilmember Frenzel. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.